East-West Shrine Bowl out in Vegas. The Steelers are out there as well. They obviously didn't send Mike Tomlin or Omar Khan or any of those guys. They'll be down here. This is the big event. But the Shrine Bowl, it carries some big names. I mean, the Super Bowl is going to have one in, wow, I'm blanking. Rutgers running back, Kansas City.
Pacheco,
Isaiah Pacheco. Thank you very much. He was discovered out in the Shrine Bowl last year. This year, the name that stuck out to me the most, Pitt's got two guys out there, I believe, in
Carter Warren. I believe it's Warren and Habakkuk Baldonado.
Yes, thank you, Baldonado. I'm blanking on names right now. But Warren met with the Steelers, spoke with him. He said that it went great. It believes that he's, a candidate for them. Isn't practicing out there because of it was a back injury that he suffered late in the season. Earlier,
I thought I heard shoulder, but yeah, it was
shoulder. Upper body,
some kind.
And then won't compete in the combine, although he was invited. But he will get he will participate at Pitt's Pro Day. I think that's huge for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you look at Carter Warren as a realistic option for the Steelers at this point? And do you think he's, NFL worthy, I guess, NFL capable, I should say, for a guy that'll go in the middle of the draft?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this was a guy who was, capable of getting drafted, maybe not as high as he was this year, but he was considering coming out for the draft last spring. He was one of the better offensive tackles in the country, and was definitely a guy who could have made that leap to the NFL. He decided to come back to school. He told us the feedback was get better at the run blocking. And if you watched Pitt at all this year, that was 90% of what he did. He ran block a lot and ran block pretty well for Israel Abanikanda, who started running wild for a bunch of touchdowns. And Warren was a big part of that. And you could see when Warren went down with his injury, the offensive line took a little bit of a step back. They were still a decent unit, but Warren was the best player along that offensive line. He was a veteran. He's savvy. He knows what he's doing. He is big. He's a huge guy. I think because of that injury, he didn't jump as much as he could have. And especially just the way Pitt played offense. It was really centered around the run. I don't think he got a chance to prove his pass blocking capabilities as much as a left tackle, which when that's the position you play, that's kind of what you look at, especially as the league becomes more pass oriented. He'll be another kind of value pick, another later round pick. He's not going in the first or second round or anything like that. Maybe not even the third round, but
I was going to say, where do you see him falling? You think he's like a fourth, fifth round pick, or you think he drops to like the end of day 3?
No, I think he'll be closer to the start of day 3. He plays a premium position and he's really good at it. I think around that fourth round, end of the third, maybe at the highest range. I think it'll be interesting when we talk to guys here. Let's talk to those interior offensive linemen, see what they're saying. Like how many of these guys are talking to the Steelers. Because if they want to pick up one of these interior linemen, a center or a guard earlier in the draft, then Warren could definitely be there as a later option at tackle, and they can kind of address both needs without, kind of sacrificing anything.
Yeah, for real. If they have 3 picks in the top 50. So if you fill a cornerback need, you fill maybe an inside linebacker need, and you fill a guard need in the first 3 picks, and then you come back at the end of the third or even the beginning of the fourth if he slides and go Carter Warren. I mean, that's a guy with minimal expectations. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers like those guys with minimal expectations. Bring another Dan Moore in here, hope that he turns out to be better than Dan Moore. If he's not better than Dan Moore, you stick with Dan Moore. Meanwhile, you upgraded Kevin Dotson and you feel fine about that. At the same time, he obviously has a relationship with the Steelers because everybody that goes to Pitt has a relationship with the Steelers. And he was Kenny Pickett's left tackle for like 35 games or something. I was looking at the numbers earlier. So they have a connection, and Kenny Pickett's obviously in the middle of those rounds going to be like, I hope that they snag Carter Warren. Maybe he says something, and I'm sure that they will. I'm sure that when Mike Tomlin and Omar and Art Rooney and Andy Weidel sit down and, start evaluating these mid-round guys, they're going to give Kenny Pickett a call anytime that he's got a connection to one of them and say, hey, what's this guy like? Is he a leader? How hard as a worker is he? Do you trust him? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure Kenny's going to give Carter one raving review. I think that's a possibility. Like, I think that's a bit overlooked in what the Steelers can do. Everybody wants to talk about Jordan Addison coming to the Pittsburgh and reuniting that. I think the Steelers would be much more interested to suit up Kenny Pickett and an offensive line that helped him win ACC Player of the Year and an ACC championship and break a bunch of records. So I think that's a move for the Steelers, and one to monitor, especially one to monitor, especially as we hit Pitt's Pro Day later next month, I believe, maybe the end of March, I believe it is.
And if you're going to invest so much in Kenny Pickett, you take his word seriously, and rebuilding that Pitt team has been kind of a joke. Rebuilding that Pitt team through the draft, just on the pro side, has been kind of a running joke this offseason for Steelers fans and Steelers media. But I mean, look, if Kenny gives a glowing endorsement of a guy, you're not gonna ignore that.
Yeah, I mean, what's the harm? You bring in his left tackle and you bring in his wide receiver, and things work out. You're just like, well, things worked out. That's that's all it is. And the best part about Carter Warren is Jordan Addison would have very high expectations. He would easily overstep Calvin Austin and any progress he makes. Carter Warren, like I said, he just comes in here and he's got an opportunity to compete. And the Pittsburgh Steelers don't hold any merit to how high his ceiling is. They're just watching to see if he's good enough to be considered the guy at some point in his career. I think that's where the Steelers threshold is. And I think they would feel very good about that move